Hello YouTube and welcome to this month's horror talk. So as you can see, this is just audio and what have you with pictures and stuff because, I have just had so little time to work with because of my, non-YouTube life and what have you. But, I don't want to fail, I don't want to let anyone down, so the main thing is I'm doing the horror talk now. So, of course, this is but this month's discussion is on the Psycho franchise. So, of course, the history and inspiration behind the film Psycho. Well, first, it's clearly everybody should know if you're a horror fan. The Ed Gein story, the case he did and that, the things he did, he inspired Buffalo Bill, Leatherface and Norman Bates because of the stuff he did. I won't, bore you with all that detail and stuff, but this inspired writer Robert Bloch to write a book, and 1959, that book was called Psycho. About a year later, filmmaker and master of suspense Alfred Hitchcock wanted to make this a film, and that's exactly what he did. Purchasing the rights to the film or what have you, and then they got Hitchcock on board to direct, and this was probably, at its time, one of the scariest movies ever made. So 1960, the film Psycho came out, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, starring Janet Leigh and Anthony Perkins. Now, this film is like in two acts. The first act we see Marion Crane, played by Janet Leigh, who's like having an affair with her boss and stuff, and her boss is having an affair with her, and she's unaware that he's married or something or whatever, and she then gets some money to put away in the bank or something, and she runs off with it, and the first half of the film follows her, and then one stormy night she pulls up at Bates Motel, owned by a shy yet gentle person, Norman Bates, played by Anthony Perkins. Now, at first we see Norman just as a shy gentleman, and offers to take Marion in. Well, he owns a motel, so she goes in there, and he offers to make her a sandwich and stuff to warm up, as it's torrential and stuff. Even though he doesn't do room service, he just wanted to be a gentleman. And of course, he gets into a conversation with her about his mother and stuff, the hobbies he does, taxidermy and that. At first we see that with Norman, then we see this whole thing he does with a keyhole or what have you. Not a keyhole, a hole in the wall and stuff, spies on her. And then next thing, this is when the film takes a dark turn and has one of the most iconic scenes ever, the shower scene, with that iconic music that you'll have heard in the intro. At first it made us think that it was Norman's mother, and that's what we go on to believe, and Norman's just being the good son and covering up for her, cleaning up the crime scene and stuff. But this is where the film completely changes its course, because this was, I don't think it had ever been done before in cinema, and they say Psycho is one of Hitchcock's best work. In fact, when people often mention Hitchcock, Psycho is usually the first thing that comes to mind. Of course, he has directed so much, but right now we're talking about Psycho. So, the film, of course, we all know, had one of the biggest twists of all, where Norman's mother was dead, and he was dressing as his mother and being her. That was inspired by Ed Gein's obsession to become his own mother. So, yeah. And of course, it has one of those... I love the ending to this film because it just has Norman alone in the room with his thoughts, and, it's like his mother has won as the dominant personality, and it ends there where he's staring right into the camera like he's directly looking at us. And it ends with, why she wouldn't hurt a fly. That still sends a chill down my spine every time I watch it. So yeah, Psycho. That was pretty much it for like 23 years. It was just seen as a standalone horror, psychological thriller. But then, about 20 years later, Robert Bloch wrote another book called Psycho 2. Of course, by then, Hitchcock was long gone, because he unfortunately died in 1979 or something. Either way, he was dead, so he wasn't obviously around to do a Psycho sequel. But Psycho 2 came out in the early 80s, and in 1983, Psycho 2 came out after a 23-year gap. This followed Norman when he was released from the mental institution, but of course Marion Crane's sister would not let the past go and believed he was still nuts. And also in this, Norman befriends a young woman who we find out in the film is actually the daughter of Marion's sister in this film, Marion's niece. And at first she's nice with him, and she manages to starts to feel sorry for him and that. And then there's this mysterious killer going around dressed as Norman's mother. We're left thinking, is it Norma? Is it Norman being Norma again? We don't know. But then it turns out at the end of Psycho 2, the culprit is actually Marion's sister, who's out to try and get Norman back in the mental house. Of course, she gets killed or something, or done for. I can't quite remember now. I've only seen Psycho 2 once because it's not the best sequel for me, in my opinion, but it's definitely an alright sequel. So pretty much at the end, there's this woman who works at the diner Norman works at, because when he's trying to rebuild his life, he stumbles across an old woman who works at the diner that he's working at, and she turns out to be his mother. And we find out that the woman was the sister of Norman's mother, and I don't know what happened, but yeah, she gave her to Norma, and she explains everything to Norman, and then he ends up killing her. And Psycho 2, he pretty much goes back to his old ways. So he's back to phase 1, and he's a psycho again. About 3 years later, in 1986, Psycho 3 came out, and this one didn't just star Anthony Perkins, it was also directed by him. So he played Norman again. This time, he befriended a woman who was in an abusive Catholic school or something, and he actually starts to develop feelings for her, because at one point he tries to kill her when she's having a bath, but he discovers that she's tried already to kill herself, and she thinks that it's all the Virgin Mary or whatever, and it's like God's plan. Whilst there's a biker kid or some travelling kid who who wants to just get a job till he can afford to get his his motorhome fixed or something. I don't know, but he turns out to be a dick and actually pushes Norman's buttons. He even discovers what Norman's been hiding, the body and everything of his deceased mother. So, yeah, the film, the sheriff who was like, looking out for Norman because he paid his debt to society, he feels like he's let Norman down or what have you. Because in the end, Norman, he's actually going back to the mental institution, and he's actually got a decaying hand in his pocket, and it just ends where Norman like stares at the camera again, like at the end of the original Psycho. So yeah. 1989, Robert Bloch had another book out. Now, Psycho 1 and 2 are the only two that are based on the books Psycho 1 and 2 are the same name. There was a third book out, but that was like out 3 years after Psycho 3 called, it was called Psycho House, the third book in the series. So yeah, Psycho House. I've not read any of the books, so yeah. So the 90s came along, and in 1990, Anthony Perkins played Norman Bates one last time in the fourth installment, which was a made-for-TV film. And to be honest, when I was watching it, it didn't feel like a made-for-TV film. It was actually, the quality of picture I thought was great for it to be low budget and that. I'm thinking, how was this on TV? It looks like it's cinematic. So anyway, yeah, the fourth film, Norman, is married. He married a nurse who looked after him in the mental institution and what have you. And, he's on the phone to an agony aunt, talking to her through her radio show about people killing their parents or whatever. And we actually, in this fourth one, it's titled Psycho for the Beginning, we actually get into Norman's backstory, what, his teenage years and that, with young women and his mother Norma. And, Norma, she was really abusive and horrible to him. I can't remember her name now, who played Norma in this, but yeah, I'm thinking, God, no wonder Norman bloody falls off the edge and kills her. Not to mention her lover, who was a bit of a knob as well, and that. Also, Norman, he's telling this woman on the radio show everything because he's actually wants to kill his wife after she deceived him by getting pregnant, because he didn't want any children. So yeah. So, of course, this all takes place on Norman's birthday, and his wife, who obviously was his nurse, manages to talk him round, and then pretty much after that, Norman decides he's getting rid of the past once and for all, so he burns down the Psycho house and stuff. Just gets rid of everything. And then, of course, just showing in there, he destroys his past, and after facing his demons and that, and he's finally free, and he then has the chance to start again. And this has to be one of the very few psychological horror franchises where our antagonist gets a happy ending, and you feel happy for him, because even though in the first few films he was deranged and troubled and psycho, he actually manages to find his sanity and not let the personality of his mother completely take over. And I'm happy for the guy. You know, even though it's all fiction and stuff, I feel pleased for Norman, how he, you know, did not give in to temptations or anything. And also, Psycho 4 has to be the only film in the series where he doesn't kill someone. I mean, yeah, we do see it in, like, the flashback sequences, but that's when he's, like, on the phone and what have you, telling us about his teenage years. But, yeah, he actually, you know, wins, does it? So, yeah, the series was pretty much done for there. Psycho 4 was the last film in the original franchise, and also, unfortunately, Anthony Perkins died in 1992 at the age of 58, 59, somewhere in his 50s, you know, which was unfortunate. So, about 8 years after Psycho 4, a new film came out, and that was Psycho, the 1998 remake, with an all-star cast, you know, all led by, what's her name? She was playing Janet Leigh's part in the film, and it had Vince Vaughn as Norman Bates. It also had William H. Macy as the detective, and it also had Julianne Moore playing the role of Marion's sister this time. Now this one, you know, is said to be one of the worst horror remakes in the world, well, of all time. I don't think it is, but it's definitely one of the worst remakes out there, because this is just a shot-for-shot remake. If you've seen the original, you basically know everything that's going to happen in this, because, well, like I just said, shot for shot. The only thing that are different is the actors and the scenery, and that, you know, it changes and stuff, but other than that, you pretty much know what's going to happen. So, yes, 1998, the remake pretty much killed the series until 2013. 15 years later, Psycho made another comeback, you know, another reboot, this time on the small screen, called Bates Motel. Now, this was like sort of reboot of Psycho 4, and stuff, and the first season follows Norman and his mother Norma, you know, starting over, you know, getting a fresh start in everything, and that, you know, buying the motel and stuff. And of course, the motel and the town that it's set in, they all have a lot of dark secrets and stuff, you know, especially like the detectives, the local police and everything. They're all dodgy. You know, the town is like a drug farm. Yeah. And in this film, we had Vera Farmiga playing Norma Bates, with Freddie Highmore as Norman. And in Bates Motel, Norma is completely reinvented. Instead of being the wicked, abusive mother we saw in Psycho 4, she was actually the opposite. She just, like, you know, she was still a bit, you know, like in the first couple episodes she did kill some people. Let's just say they do a lot of dodgy shit and that, but other than that, Norma, she just wants to be a good mother to her son. This also introduced some, like, new characters, like Emma, who was Norman's love interest for the first couple seasons, before she went to Norman's half-brother, Dylan, who was also made for the TV show. Alex Romero, who was the sheriff, who was also made for the TV show. Yeah, so the first first season, they're trying to start over. Second, third seasons and fourth, you know, Norman's battling with his alter ego, which is also Norma, and he's struggling everything. Then there was the 5th season. Season 5 of Bates Motel was the last one, and this was like a remake of Psycho, only from more of Norman's point of view. The film had Rihanna, not the film, the series guest starred Rihanna in a few episodes as Marion Crane, and we also got to know a bit more of the boss Marion Crane was having an affair with, Sam Loomis. No, not Sam Loomis from Halloween, which what I was thinking when I first heard the name. No, in this one, the season 5 episode 6, which was titled Marion, I was sat at the edge of my seat the whole time waiting for that iconic shower scene to be done, because that's what Psycho is known for. Because when people say Hitchcock, you usually think of Psycho, and when you think of Psycho you think of the shower scene. So there I was waiting the whole episode on the edge of my seat to see Marion, played by Rihanna, get stabbed in the shower. But in this, they completely flipped it around. And in this one, it was her boss. It was Sam Loomis, who we got to know as a character. And to be honest, he kind of had it coming, because he was a bit of a dick. And he was taking advantage of 2 women. His wife, who looked so much like Vera Farmiga, and and also, Marion had no idea he was married or anything of that, so he was a total bastard, so he kind of deserved it. But yeah, they did a huge, massive plot twist on the shower scene, and it was jaw-dropping for me. I had to rewind it and to make sure I saw that right. It didn't have that classic violin, that music. No, it was playing Roy Orbison crying, probably just to change it up a bit and that. But yeah, it was a mind-blowing scene for me, and I was expecting Bates Motel to end the way Psycho did, where Norman's sitting in a room alone with his thoughts, and then it ends with that, why she wouldn't hurt a fly, but it didn't. Norman, wanted his brother Dylan to kill him, and, well, he managed to force him into doing it, because, in the end, Norman died, and like Ed Gein, as we discussed earlier on in this video, he was buried with her, Norman next to his mother. I forgot to mention as well, in season 4, the penultimate episode, Norman kills Norma. Not poisons her or anything with her lover, or anything, because like I said, this is all completely different. He kills her with carbon monoxide poisoning, and then digs her up in the last episode of season 4. So yeah, season 5, yeah, like I said, remake of Psycho, but it wasn't shot for shot, and they changed it up, which I thought that's what remakes should be, a similar plot summary, but a bit of a changeover in that. And one thing I liked about Bates Motel is the scenery and the location. Bates Motel, the location for the motel and the house was, spot on, the exact same replica of the original scenery and set. I'm going to assume that it is the original set that they filmed it on, because it was just, they nailed it. If not, then they nailed it down to a T of how good the hotel looked and well, not the hotel, motel looked, and the house. And yeah, so Bates Motel, that had a good run, and I think they did good to just end it after 5 seasons, because pretty much towards the end, I'll admit, it started to get a bit boring. It did start to drag on with Norman battling his demons and that, so I'm glad they finally ended it. So yeah, the Psycho franchise, over the last 57 years, it has been, a big hit, and people still watch it and talk about it today, from the original in 1960 to Bates Motel ending in 2017. Yeah, it's been, a long ride and that. Will we see any more Psycho reboots or remakes or anything in the near future? I don't know. I really hope not now. I really hope they just keep the franchise dead and buried, because it's had a good run. I enjoyed the 4 original films, didn't like the remake. I enjoyed Bates Motel. I just don't think, there's no need for it to be resurrected or anything now. For at least, for a good long while. So, yes. Well, that has been, this month's horror talk on the Psycho franchise. So, yeah. Let me know down in the comments. What's your favourite Psycho film, and what's your favourite moments and that or whatever in the Psycho franchise, and that. Let me know all that down in the comments. If you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to share with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and to hit that notification bell. All my social media links, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they're all linked down below in the description, so you can check those out. Also, feel free to join my Facebook horror group, the Random Horror Madhouse, and that. So, yeah, that's pretty much it from this month's horror talk. So, yeah, is there anything else I need to add on to this? Nope, I don't think so. So, until next time, don't have nightmares.